A pleasant day to each and everyone. We are Group 1. For today's lesson, we're going to discuss the Lesson 1, which is the Understanding Environment and Environmental Science. But first of all, let me just introduce to all of you what is the definition of environment. Sabi dito, environment can be defined as the circumstances or conditions that surround an organism or group of organisms. Alternatively, it can be defined as the combination of social or cultural conditions that affect the individual and the community. Therefore, it basically means it is the surrounding external condition influencing development, or let's just say growth of people, animal or plants, living or any living organisms. We all know that growth of people, it is yung paglaki ng isang tao. Let's just say from infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, middle adulthood, and old age. Since majority sa atin is 18, we are on early adulthood. As you can see, lahat ng picture na nandito, it is environment. Since when we say environment, diba, it is anything that surrounds us or around us. Therefore, we also have different kinds of constitute. And it is natural world along with technological, social, and cultural world. And it is very important to our community. 'Di ba sinabi kanina, when we say environment, it is anything that surrounds us or around us. Therefore, included din doon yung energy from the sun and also lahat ng living things and non-living things kung saan tayo ay nakikipag-interact. Our life is basically depends on our environment, such as technological advances, yung mga sunlight, and also yung air and water, food na kinakain natin, especially yung shelter, the roof above our heads, and soil, lahat. Pati yung mga climate, and any components of planet's life that supports our system. Next is environmental system. As you can see, nandito yung atmosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and lithosphere. I know that all of you is familiar na dito since natakal na to nung junior high school. And magsa-start tayo sa atmosphere. Makikita nyo, di ba, nandito siya sa part na to. And ano bang meron dyan? Oxygen. Therefore, atmosphere contains oxygen. It also protects us, para siyang nagiging shield from harmful ultraviolet solar radiation. And nakakreate din siya ng pressure which liquid water couldn't exist in our planet's surface. And next is biosphere. Here is the biosphere. When we say biosphere, kung makikita nyo dito, merong mga ibon, nandyan yung mga puno, mountains. When we say biosphere, it provides the ecosystem that is needed for survival. Biodiversity, we all know that biodiversity thrives within the ecosystems, and the biosphere is a reliable source of food on Earth. Therefore, it is really important yung biosphere dito, since ito, lahat yan, kailangan yan ng Earth for us to survive, lahat ng mga living organisms. Next is, nandito naman tayo sa may hydrosphere. Here, ano bang nakikita natin dyan? Liquid. Therefore, hydrosphere contains liquid. It contains water, diba? And it is also important, it has important role in our ecosystem, regulating the atmosphere. Lahat sila is related. Next naman is lithosphere. Here. Nakikita nyo, di ba? Nandito siya sa part na to. Therefore, lithosphere provides us forest, grassland, or any agriculture and human settlements. And also, we all know that this thing is rich source of minerals. Therefore, lahat sila is mahalaga for us to survive. And tayo as a human being, hindi tayo makakasurvive if we don't have this kind of systems. Since na-explain ko na kanina kung ano nga ba yung definition and also importance of environmental system, therefore, it's easy to all of you to understand all of this. Diba? When we say atmosphere, ito is yung mass of air that surrounds the earth. And also, it help us or prevent us from harmful ultraviolet. Next is hydrosphere. Hydrosphere naman, it is all the waters on the earth's surface. Katulad na lang dyan yung oceans, seas, lakes, streams, lahat. Lahat ng water na nasa Earth. Lithosphere naman, when we say lithosphere, it is the solid outer part of the Earth. Diba? Next is biosphere. Ito naman yung nandito naman lahat ng mga living organisms. And also, dagdag kaalaman lang, when we say bio, it means life, and then spiral refers to Earth's shape.
Okay, so by now we've already been made aware of the broad definition of our environment as well as the different systems within it. But now let's take a moment to know what exactly makes up our environment. Let's talk about the elements of the environment. The environment consists of interacting systems of physical, biological, and cultural elements interrelated in various ways, individually as well as collectively. A good way of describing the elements making up our environment is that these concepts, almost all of them, are individually distinct yet greatly rely on interacting with one another. Now, notice I said almost all of them. Only when these elements are capable of interacting are we then able to define what constitutes for our environment. Now, there are three main elements of the environment. The first one would be the physical. Physical elements are landforms, water bodies, climate soils, rocks, and minerals. They can determine the variable character of the human habitat, its opportunities, as well as its limitations. The physical element contains just about every land formation and body of water we can find on Earth. Even minerals deep underground constitute for the physical element. These elements affect those inhabiting it as it can offer unique opportunities and limitations to its inhabitants. However, the physical element is not only limited to what we can hold and constantly interact with, as the weather and climate that we experience also make up the physical elements of the environment. So these are natural occurrences like the climate, the weather, even natural disasters that we know, like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, they all make up physical elements of the environment. The next would be the biological. We are part of this element. What is it? Well, it's the flora and fauna. Biological elements are living things making up the biosphere. This category includes us humans, domesticated and wild animals and plants, as well as microorganisms like bacteria and prokaryotes. So, technically, we can be considered part of the physical element in a broad sense. But what makes biological life distinct enough that we can be our own separate element? Well, the big difference here is that biological life, the biological element refers to every living thing inhabiting the planet. And I've mentioned before that the physical element offers unique opportunities and limitations to its inhabitants. Well, that's where we come in. That's where the biological life come in, because since we are living organisms, what we do is that we are capable of utilizing and adapting to whatever is present in the physical environment. Right? So different organisms have different needs and lifestyles depending on what is present around them. So an animal that is living in a forest would have completely different needs than an animal living underwater. We as humans even have very different needs depending on whether we are living in the city, are we living in the countryside, is are we living in a mountainous area or not. So that's where what the biological element does, is that it interacts with the environment. It uses whatever it can find in the environment. It adapts to that, uh, yeah, to whatever is present in the physical and element. The third element, however, is very different from the previous two, because the third element is the cultural. The cultural element is a completely man-made concept. Cultural elements are a testament to just how much man can affect its environment. Our economic, political, and social constructs have allowed us to leave deep, lasting changes within natural and our own artificial environments. So the cultural element goes to show just how much man is capable of affecting its environment. We are able to use our own inventions, our own constructs, law, money, society, to greatly change the makeup of the environment. For example, do we want to protect an endangered species? Well, we can enact a law for that. Do we want institutions dedicated for caring for animals and spreading awareness? That's also possible for us. Do we want to greatly devastate the environment by exploiting our natural resources? Well, yeah, we have been doing that for as long as we have existed. So, humanity, though it has only existed for a short period of time on Earth, was able to greatly affect the very makeup of the planet, that we are able to make our cultural constructs, our own inventions, its own separate element.
Hello everybody, my name is Cyrus Joshua Alfonso and I will be presenting environmental science, its awareness, definition, concerns, and studies. Awareness is the knowledge or perception of a situation or a fact. In this topic's case, we are going to focus on environmental awareness as it is directly related to environmental science. Environmental awareness is to share the fragility of the environment in such a way to inspire the listeners to act in informed decisions to aid in spreading it further. Those who are informed help in the improvement of the environment by optimizing the number of resources humans exploit for a sustainable development. This is where environmental science comes in, as it is the best way to know how to best optimize the actions of people. Environmental science is the systematic and scientific study of the environment in combination with living organisms, as it's an interdisciplinary study of how the earth has survived and how humans interact with the environment along with the environment in order to live with it sustainably. Environmental science is to be more direct with the study of connections in the natural environment, as the best way to help the environment can be determined by the identification of specific relationships in the environment, along with their specific relationship with one another in order to find the problems with an item and rectifying it without further damaging the environment. Concerns. Changes brought by human hands are the biggest concern due to how impactful humanity is on the environment. This impact is further divided by how damaging it is or how helpful it is. Environmental science hopes that the general human populace is more on the side of helpful rather than damaging. Good welfare of living organisms that include humanity as a poor environment would only lead to a bad situation. For humans as disease and population would decimate the people's health. Pollution would make a great habitat for diseases to fester and spread from, which would eventually reach to humans. Other living organisms help in the removal of diseases, as most of them hunt carriers of diseases, as an example of how important other creatures help humanity. Incentivizing creation of less pollution would help both humans and other living organisms create a good common welfare in health. The political backlash would obviously be prevalent since, in order to provide large changes, the government should change, implement, and remove any environmentally harmful policies, which would create backlash to those who would have benefited from policies like those. Financial situations is a large problem as it is very expensive to improve the environment and people tend to value the current situation rather than the future. People will complain as it affects their money situation and would prove unable to live their day-to-day lives if the monetary demand is too high. Environmental studies. It is a multidisciplinary science because it is comprised of various branches of studies like chemistry, physics, medical science, life science, agriculture, public health, sanitary engineering, etc. It is the science of physical phenomena in the environment. It studies of the sources, reactions, transport, effect, and fate of physical and biological species in the air, water, and soil, and the effect of humanity upon these.
Rapid population growth. Human population have increased at frightening rates in recent years. This century, the population has increased from 2.5 billion in 1950 to 7.8 billion in March 2020. Unless birth rates are reduced if mortality rates remain constant, it might reach 10 to 11 billion by 2050 and 14 billion by 2100. The majority of growth is occurring in underdeveloped nations, when resources and services are already being stretched by existing population. A population of over tens of millions is rising at a rate of 2.11% every year. Poverty. There is a connection between poverty and environmental damage. The great majority of people rely directly on natural resources for basic necessity such as food, fuel, housing, and fodder. Many people are still living in poverty. The poor who rely on the resources of their local surroundings have suffered as a result of environmental deterioration. Thus, the challenges of poverty and environmental deterioration are two sides of the same coin. The population growth is primarily a result of poverty. Food shortage and famines. Famine occurs when a significant part of countries or regions' population is unable to get appropriate food, resulting in widespread acute malnutrition and death from starvation and illness. These are all too common in many locations, and their frequency and severity may increase if population expansion, soil erosion, and nutrient depletion continue at their recent rates. Food security is generally associated with poverty, democracy, and equal distribution rather than the amount of food available. Agricultural growth. People must be educated on how to sustain and expand agricultural growth while protecting the environment. Soil salinity and physical structure damage have been induced by high-producing cultivars. Unfortunately, monocropping farming has caused significant environmental harm by transforming forests into massive plantations, contaminating the water bodies surrounding them, and reducing biodiversity. Some agricultural practices such as the use of toxic and hazardous chemical in fertilization and wet and weed management have an influence on air and water quality. Need to groundwater. It is critical to rationalize groundwater use. Factors such as municipal garbage, industrial effluent, chemical fertilizers, and pesticide have contaminated our surface water and impact groundwater quality. It is critical to repair the water quality of our rivers and other bodies of water, since lakes provide significant challenges. It is also critical to develop appropriate measures of water conservation, safe drinking water provision, and keeping water bodies clean, all of which are significant tasks. Degradation of land. Land degradation is a process in which the value of biophysical environment is influenced by a variety of human-induced activities that operate on the land. It is defined as any modification or disturbance to the land that is neither detrimental or unwanted. Excessive and conventional farming, mining, and quarrying, population, infrastructure development, urban sprawl, and other factors have all contributed to global land degradation. Land degradation impacts people and ecosystem all around the world, and it is both influenced by and contributes to climate change.
Reduction of genetic diversity. Unti-unting nawawala yung genetic diversity, particular sa wildlife. Halimbawa, yung Asiatic lions nawawalan na ng genetic diversity dahil ina-isolate sila sa sanctuaries at national parks. Dahil dito nawawalan ng chance yung mga hayop na makapagsalin lahi sa iba pang grupo. Consequences of urbanization. Yung 27% ng Indians ay nakatira sa mga urban areas. Sa ghetto or sa squatters area nakatira ang 30% dun sa mga Indians na nasa urban areas. Sa 3,245 na lungsod sa India, 21 lang doon ang may maayos na sewage systems. Kaya ang pag-adapt sa urbanization ay mahirap. Water shortage. Future agricultural productivity at home and industrial usage ang nanganganib dahil sa water shortage at pagiging polluted ng existing na water supplies. Bilyon na tao ang walang access sa malinis na tubig at maraming bansa ang nakakaranas ng water shortage. Karamihan sa mga industrial facilities ay gumagamit lamang ng basic at outdated na teknolohiya at walang proper waste management. Depletion of non-renewable fossil fuels. Sobrang naabuso yung mga fossil fuels dahil dumadami ang ating populasyon at dahil na rin sa modernisasyon, kaya naubos na yung supply nito. Nagkakos ng harm at pollution ang paggamit nito, pero kung gagamit tayo ng tamang technology, pwedeng mapalitan yung harm ng eco-friendly na renewable energy sources. Deforestation and threat to biodiversity. Mabilis na nauubos ang mga species dahil sa deforestation, pagsira ng coral reefs at ng wetlands. Dahil doon ay pwede tayong mawalan ng options sa future. Madami tayong napapahamak na species dahil sa ating pagsasaka, paggawa ng mga dam, paggawa ng factories, paggawa ng highways, pagmimina at marami pang iba. Improper disposal of solid and hazardous wastes. Nagiging global crisis na ang problema natin sa mga hazardous waste. Maraming waste ang napaproduce natin kada taon at karamihan doon ay hindi natin nadidispose ng tama.